So welcome back to another Friday Live where we are going to be really digging into the whole differences of working in the retail versus the broker side. And I think the best way that we can do that for all of you is by connecting with people who are intimately involved or have been involved on the retail side and are now on the broker side, closest to when we're talking about this. So yes, I've had my own experiences, but I wanted to bring someone in who very recently and is still in that process of making that switch. And so I brought a guest on here today, Nathan Udomstree. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you, Megan, for the intro.
Yeah. And so what I like to do is typically, I know where you came from and I know your journey, but could you maybe share with anyone who is going to be watching this video, just give a brief background of I love how you were in a very, very successful field and getting into the industry and how long you were retail till you started to think. And I'm going to ask you some questions, but just intro how you got into this.
Yeah. So originally I was studied engineering, went into engineering as a aerospace engineer. Did that for about 5 years and then knew real estate was the playbook. And I definitely couldn't be a good real estate agent. So I was like, oh, numbers is probably better. So then I got licensed in 2020. Or that was my first full year. Obviously, with rates going down, that helped quite a bit. You get more reps in. And then 2020 to 2024, end of 2024, I was in that retail stint and then mortgage broker, I should say, right after that. So
you're in this industry, which like aerospace engineering, I'm sure you can do very well in that.
Yeah. Obviously the starting salaries were great. My ending salary was amazing. I remember my first W-2 in my first paycheck was 6 months after I got fully licensed, and it was $2,000 after taxes. And I was like, ugh, yikes. After doing 6 months of hard work, I'm like, wow. You start second guessing yourself, right? For sure.
Yeah. Any change you start, but right. Gosh, you've come such a long way since then. So you got into it in retail.
Yes, correct.
Got it.
And I was working under my mentor. He essentially exposed me to the industry, and I was like, oh, I think I like that. Shadowed him, got licensed in 2 weeks or something like that. And then, just try to learn as much as I could. I think I was looking back now, I would consider my retail stint almost as a gathering as much information as possible. And I didn't know it at the time, but I know it now. I guess I'm not a good as an employee, I always find ways I think I could do this better. And then that always, with upper level management, they were like, we can't change that. I'm like, but why not? Because SpaceX is catching rockets with chopsticks. So I think we could probably change this.
Yeah, people don't like people who like to rock the boat.
Yeah. So looking backwards, I'm like, oh, okay. I guess I was meant to be a business owner at some point. But during that stint, I learned a lot.
And so you had that, so you started and you're like, okay, my paycheck wasn't when did you finally feel like you started making similar money to what you were making in your career field?
Yeah, it took about a year. So end of 2020. So it was 6 months of nothing and then just hockey sticked from there. So anyone who's watching this and they're kind of in that starting phase, I think the results kind of lag a little bit. Yes, I had opportunity with rates in the mid threes. I can't remember exactly.
Yeah.
But, they were all purchases because I didn't have any past clients. So, but just sticking with it helped quite a bit.
And did you build your own book of business pretty much?
Yeah. So I was honestly, it's funny because I guess I was trained, if you ever coach somebody, you're always better at coaching versus taking your own advice.
Oh, yeah.
So I feel like my mentor is really good at least telling me what I should do in a perfect world. Right. So I just thought there was no other form of getting business besides going to open houses and meeting agents and making sure I obviously build rapport. And then if they have something that they need help with, that I actually follow through and get it done. Like if
Yeah.
they need numbers crunched, then I actually get it done when I get back home. If they had a scenario and I didn't know, I actually got it done before, Monday, like I
Mhm.
type thing. Well, again, I didn't know there was like paid leads or I guess
Like
retail.
all the different types.
Yeah, I thought it was always self-generation, not, like some retail companies, I believe, get leads online and then kind of shuffle them out or something like that. So I didn't know that was a thing. So
Well, I didn't know it was a thing either until I think it was when our marketing director joined. 99% of my business was driven by referrals, right? And yes, but I wasn't even really working our database, and it was once we had the professional help of really diversifying it and starting to understand like running a business versus a job where it always depends on you, right?
yeah, exactly.
And so
Yeah.
when in retail, then you were there for a few years, when did you start like even thinking like what is this other side that you probably weren't introduced to, which is, I call it sometimes like the dark side or the wholesale, being a mortgage broker.
Yeah. When was I introduced to it?
Or
I
what
would,
made you think about it?
yeah, I would say when I started getting some loans that started getting squirrely. I mean, the benefit of retail is going to be, at least from what I've been told,
Mm-hmm.
is you have direct access to underwriting, more control over the file, etc. But your rates are going to be higher. Like as an engineer, I knew like, where's the money? So, okay, you have all these people, have all this staff. Obviously, your rates have to be higher because if they aren't, then how are you
Right.
going to pay? How are you going to pay the
Yep.
setup desk, the underwriting manager, the funding manager, the VPs? So I understood that. But once that benefit started to dwindle in the sense of like, some of these loans are getting a little shaky. They closed, but they were like, shouldn't be that hard, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I started like wanting to explore other options and stuff. And then I think I found you and Andre on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's how that rabbit hole started.
Okay. So that's how the rabbit hole started. And so you started understanding now. So we'll flip. You didn't know the broker world.
Yeah.
And the thing that I like people to hear is that the broker world is very different. Like I feel like when you go to retail, right? Most of retail, yes, it can be different from one company to the next, but broker world's the same way. It can be different no matter what. But based on what you just said, you had all this support where you decide you want to come over to wholesale. Do you have access to talk to underwriters and processors?
Right. Oh, on this side.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. I feel like I don't want to say I was misled. I just think when you're in retail, that's what you see and therefore you believe.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think on the broker side, there's been just as much support as I need, or like just as much support as I need. Now,
Mm-hmm.
being candid, like I don't know if it's helpful knowing your guidelines and stuff, like, because I was trained on, hey, if you have a problem, look up the guidelines, reach out to the underwriter, collaborate, not fight, but collaborate. So anytime I talk to an underwriter, they're like, oh wait, he's nice. Because like came from aerospace and like, yeah, you don't fight
Right.
coworkers.
Right.
Like, yeah, you don't fight coworkers for sure. And then so I just came at it with that attitude, and then I just learned a lot of guidelines. So when I came to the broker world, like, yeah, if something happens, then I just follow that playbook of contacting the underwriter. Actually, ironically, they usually reach out beforehand, which is actually really nice. And then I just ask them the questions, and yeah, the playbook is essentially, hey, I see this guideline. Can you help educate me just in case I see something like this? And also, can you point me to the guideline as well, just so I can share it with the client? And it's never fighting somebody. It's a dance. So I find that that's been super helpful from a support perspective. And then processing too. It's kind of funny because the processor that I work with right now, I feel like some people in the industry have a tendency to get upset and abrasive with customer success or the processing team.
Mm-hmm.
But I found that it's not the case. I mean, it's good. It's better to collaborate than to fight.
No, I 100% agree. And
I think
have you found that? So do you feel, because that's like you said, you felt like when you were in retail, like in wholesale or as a broker, you lose control alone because it's not all in-house, right? So you right now, you use a contract processor, you use different lenders. Do you feel like you've lost control?
I don't think so, mainly because like I can talk about feelings, but I can also talk about metrics, which is my fundings have gone up and my reviews per client have gone up.
Well,
So
that's
like
a good thing. That's what most people want in a slow market.
yeah, I mean the data is the data, right? So like I can say yes, I feel better, but when the fundings have gone up, the dollar amount's gone up, and the reviews have gone up, then per client, I should say, then that's usually a key metric that it's just fine.
And you and I are both very data-driven people, which not everybody is. But like you said, numbers don't lie. And that's something I talk about a lot. And I'm like, I truly believe it. And it's why I am so passionate about this side. I feel like you can work smarter, not harder on the wholesale side.
Yeah, actually, like, that's actually a good point because I remember I was like looking up, mortgage broker. This is before like ChatGPT got really big. I feel like now you can probably look it up. What do mortgage brokers make versus like retail? I was making like 100 bips versus mortgage broker. I mean, you could do whatever you want, right? But I just fundamentally knew like, oh, if I make double for the same amount of work, it's just actually the same concept of like, because I talked to some people at different companies and stuff like that, or just like average loan amounts. I'm in California, so like my average loan amount's like 800,000.
Yeah, we hate you for that.
Yeah, so like it's the same. If frankly speaking, it's the same amount of work as $100,000 loan. If you think about it,
it is.
So like, I just knew that if I make double the money, it's actually easier because operationally you don't need as like if you have 2 clients and you make 100,000 versus you need 10 clients to make 100,000. Again, this is hypothetical. Operationally, it's way easier to service 2 people compared to 10. Now, some people obviously like to have the big numbers on their scorecards and the Scotsman guides and stuff like that, but that wasn't really important to me. I think bank account at the end of the day was more important. So,
and has your bank account benefited from your move?
Yeah, for sure. Because the math work makes sense, right? Because like it's, at least for me, again, some retail loan officers might have a different setup or whatever, right. But I was making 1 BIP, or I'm sorry, 100 basis points per closing based on the loan amount. I think it was capped at like something 5, 6, 7, or 8, something like that. On the broker side,
you're still not at what your full potential be, because right, you're in the process of opening your own brokerage. Right. Now, here's the thing that a lot of people say about opening their own brokerage, which that's one of the things is for us is having that open conversation with people because nobody's having it. Have you had to do all this administrative paperwork and desk work and signing up with lenders?
No, fortunately, shout out to Jessica, who's been helping, part of Collab Lending. She's been running point for a lot of this stuff. So paperwork wise, it's been pretty straightforward. It's almost like the way I think, the analogy I like to think is like Jessica from Collab Lending has been almost like an executive assistant for this particular pillar of the business.
Right? Yep, she's our account executive. Exactly.
Yeah. So like, I just saw it as that. Now obviously like it's pay to play. Like I just understand where money goes. Like, so like, no, nothing's free.
Correct.
Right? Like if you roll the underwriting fee into the rate goes up. Right. So
Yep.
like, I understand that. And then also like, at the end of the day, I was just trying to streamline the process as much as possible. And I think Jessica's been helping with that.
Yep.
So paperwork wise, it's been actually pretty easy, I should say.
Now, and just kind of compare it to my experience. So when we opened our brokerages, I actually never did the lender signups, the licensing. Like I hired full-time people to come in and do it.
Yeah.
And so, because my priority was production, and which for you has also been your priority, and having it takes a while to learn that stuff. So having people who know how to do it and do it efficiently and quickly is usually where it's going to help you do that, right?
Mhm.
Now you're in a state that takes a little bit longer for that approval. Unfortunately, some states are quicker, some are not.
Right.
I guess for people listening, like what has been some of with the process of opening your own brokerage that you've gone through, like what have been any surprises, good or bad, scary, not scary, just things that would be helpful for people to hear if they're thinking about opening a brokerage?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. So I'm trying to remember the good and the bad. So let's go bad first, which is because it's a little easier for me to remember. So timeline wise, yes, it's taking a little longer, but fortunately I'm in like a transition team, so I could still kind of make what I want during that time. Plus I run the same playbook as like, okay, cool. What can I learn while I'm in this stage? So it's just talking to more people, learning as much as possible, running into weird guidelines, which you run into retail, or weird scenarios, which you would run in retail or broker, but then just trying to ask, what would you do in this situation? I think that's a good framework. So yeah, timeline wise, it's taking longer than normal, but that would be a downside. I would say in the beginning, you definitely have to like know what portals, like just bookmark it, stay organized in the sense of like, if you have like 5 wholesale lenders that you work with, just bookmark it, the actual websites. Don't try to like memorize the website and stuff like that. So that's been helpful. The way I mitigated that was I just created like a little Notion board, or if you don't use Notion, just Word doc, Google Doc, or something like that, of just common URLs. And then I kind of built this like grading list. I think that's what the kids do, like an S tier, you're ranking your lenders, but I just do A, B, C.
Yep.
F, just with the lenders. So I was really lucky in the sense that I think if you're producing, you could get more reps in. You can send one to each lender, and just because everyone's going to say from an account executive that they do really well for everything, but then you get tested out for each loan. So I thought that was helpful. So just staying organized, that was a big one in the beginning, but now it's done. It's like very easy, I should say. Right.
You get the hang of it, right?
Yeah. It's almost like, in retail, you're like, when you get round robin to underwriters, you're like, oh, this one's a good underwriter. That one's a tough one. This one's good. That one's okay. Like you kind of build that thing. I mean, that's like with it starting a new company or anything like that. It's just the same. So that would be some of the bads, and the solutions, I guess. The good was definitely, I would say, processing loans. Not that I'm processing it personally, but like when it's in the process has been a lot easier than what I would say retail makes it out to be honest with you.
Good.
Yeah. I don't know if it's just my clients that I have or not, but I think it's been easier for sure. So that's been a huge pro. And obviously the compensation per loan amount, dollar amount, has been a lot better. So that's been helpful.
And do you feel, kind of before we wrap things up so people can kind of hear from your perspective, do you feel like you have full autonomy over picking the rate and the amount that you're making?
Yeah, you can do whatever you want with that, or not do whatever you want, but like definitely a lot more flexibility, I should say. So
which is typically the case on the wholesale side, where and you really see the whole pricing for what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a lot more transparent, I should say.
Perfect. So then, let's just so for everyone here, and you also where can people find you if they watch this and they want to ask you a question? You have if is it the YouTube channel? Where can they find you?
YouTube channel. That's more my longer form stuff. So anyone who's curious on how to educate home buyers, most home buyers don't care about loan products. They actually care about how to solve a problem. So that's kind of how I built the videos. Instagram's more short stuff. So I never really talk about like, oh, I helped this client close. I just stick with education. So I don't know if that's the right play, but we'll see 5 years from now. Right?
If you have more reviews, more clients, more closings, more money in your bank account, I think you're doing something correct. Yeah. And I always say, like, in this industry, nobody gives you like the career path. Like, it's just do more loans. Like, but really thinking about long-term is something everyone in our industry needs to do. And so if somebody does end up, seeing this live or watches it, and let's say that they're in retail, if they're a loan officer, a branch manager, like, what would your advice be to them, right? As they're a W-2 working somewhere, they've never thought about wholesale, and maybe it's not for them, but what would be your number one piece of advice?
Basically, if they're in retail, LO or branch manager, is that what you're saying?
Like, should they at least be curious?
Yeah, I think it's good to kind of flesh out both paths. Really, meaning what I'm trying to say is, like, you have the retail path and then you have the mortgage broker path. I think it's good to flesh out both paths, especially if you're going to be in the industry for quite some time. And that way you close the loop of like which one you're going to be better served in. So one would be, it's just like literally like solving for all the variables for each retail versus broker. And that way you can kind of sit and compare the two, right? Because there's nothing worse than, like, I should say, like, let's say you're working on a client and they're going to like refinance or something like that. You just throw them a rate and then they're just like, I don't know what to do. Right. That's causes, I feel like, anxiety because you don't know, there's so many unknowns, right? But once you actually walk them through, okay, here's your amortization table, here's your savings, here's a 29-year fixed instead of a 30-year fixed, and then here's your total out of pocket, here's your break even, right? You walk them through all those bullet points, then they're like, oh, okay, I understand, right? So I feel like if someone's in that path right now, like who's retail, LO, or branch manager, and they're curious about it, just fill out all the unknowns and then you can make that decision yourself.
Yeah, like get a little bit analytical, like the two of us like to be, just a little bit.
Yeah. You know, it's funny because my wife and I were talking about this the other day, and we were talking about how, I forgot, it was somebody, she was talking about her coworker or something like that. She's going to like leave the hospital or leave the workplace that she's at right now because she realized the pension benefits weren't as good as what they were talked up to be. Yeah. So I feel like a lot of times it's like, what I'm trying to say is, like, when someone says, oh yeah, they have awesome healthcare or they have awesome benefits, it's not like, do they have benefits or not? It's like, how good are the benefits, right?
There's
like
layers to it. It's an onion.
Absolutely layers to it. How good is the pension? Not, oh, they have a pension, therefore I'm good, right? So that's why, like, digging in a little deeper is, I think, wiser. So it's like, is retail good or bad? I don't know. Like, or is broker good or bad? I don't know. It's just,
what type of onion are they?
What do you want to do, and how much work do you want to do for compensation? And then you can figure it out from there. Right.
Right. Like a perfect example of what you're saying is I've looked at broker to retail, and there was a recent article that broke down the two, and broker came out that you'd make more money. It didn't even factor in if you own your own brokerage or a 1099, right? Like the tax benefits, like that's a layer. That's a layer of the onion that gets left out. And there's so many layers like that. So you can't come to the broker side, and not every brokerage is going to be perfect for each person. So you got to pick the right one.
Yeah, no, exactly. That's a good point because it's, I guess, fundamental. Like whenever I get to this situation, like you're like doing something new, it's like, has someone else done this before? Right? Like,
Yep.
oh, there's so many other brokers that have done it. There's so many other retail LOs that have done it. So like, of course I can do it too, right?
Yep.
You know, like I'll give you an example. Like I'm doing a half marathon in like a week and a half.
Hmm.
I'm like 195 pounds. Most people can't run a sub 100 minute half marathon, but hopefully I'll do that this coming week.
I've never run anything like that. So.
Yeah, but like the reason why I started that path was because like I've seen some pretty built people who are like 220 shredded and they're like running 90-minute half marathons or faster. I'm like, oh, so I can do it too. Gotcha. So like I'm just trying to like build this analogy for anyone who's watching this in the sense of like, if someone else has done it, you could probably do it too, right? Because there's someone else who's done it with way less resources, especially compared to me. Like, because like I'm assuming some people have gone into mortgage broker industry with no experience, not knowing FHA, conventional, Fannie, Freddie at all, and they crushed it, right?
I meet people they found me through the YouTube channel. It's blowing my mind the things I'm learning from other broker owners and their businesses and how they've built it. And it's just the most interesting thing in the whole world. And I think there's a lot for all of us to learn from each other that, yes, we've got Facebook groups, but really hearing people's stories is going to open ideas for everybody.
Yeah. Actually, I wanted to add one thing because like anyone who's listening to this that watches it in the future or whatever, I know something that I wish I could go back in time was when I was interviewing other retail companies or like whatever, going into a different company, let's say a different path, I should say. I fell into the fallacy that I would ask, do you have support or something like that, right? And of course
we have support.
Of course. How's your turn times? Amazing. Cool. How are your rates? Great. Amazing. Right? I'd never asked like, but define that for me.
Let me see it.
Right? Yeah. So like, I wish I would have dug deeper on certain situations. Not saying people lie or anything like that, but like I wish, because people have different definitions of
what you're right.
It is, right? So like I needed to better on my end. If I could go back in time, I would have asked better, deeper questions of please define what good support means to you.
I agree.
And like clearly outlining what will happen and what would not happen. And then if this will never happen, meaning we will always look at your files within 24 to 48 hours per SLA. But if it's at, 72 hours, what you gonna do, right? What's my compensation for not honoring what you said, right? And I felt like I ran into, I just was a lay down. I was like, okay, well,
we all did that. No, we all did that. We drank the Kool-Aid and, but that's how we learn, right? That's how we learn lessons in life. And it applies to as you open your brokerage, the wholesale lenders, right? That
same thing. Of course, everyone says they can do it. Everyone says they can do it. Close in 7 days with a leap year in there and then a holiday. Even though compliantly you can't close faster than 10, but they're like, oh yeah, we can do 7. Yeah, I was like, okay. But like, I guess learning, going backwards in time, getting punched in the face a few times. Now I'm very strict on digging deeper on interview questions and actually spending a ton of time. So that's just the unfortunate thing though. Like I feel like in retail, like I think if they find out that you're trying to move, you get cut, your access gets cut off like right away. So I understand sometimes you got to make fast decisions, but if I were to go back in time, I would highly be more diligent on interviewing the questions, etc., whether that's for retail or broker. So,
well, I know I appreciate it, and I know other people will appreciate it because right? It's so hard when you want to do this. So I appreciate you sharing your experience. And I know it's just a little bit of it. And so we're continuing to try to find ways for people to hear and be able to ask questions. So please go look up, what is your YouTube channel's name? So if people want to go over to your channel or find you on social again, can you share that one more time, Nathan?
Yeah, it's just Nathan Udomsri, UDOM as in Matthew, SRI. And yeah, or Google me. And then I'm sure the SEO will figure something out and tell you to go click on something.
Awesome. Well, thanks for everyone who has joined us here today and or is watching it after. Reach out to Nathan, reach out to myself if you have considered the mortgage broker, the dark side. But hopefully this has given you a better insight, and we'll be back next Friday covering another topic that where we'll dig in on what it's like on the wholesale side. Until then, have a great week, everyone. Okay.